All right, so if you hold XRP, it's an exciting day in the markets right now. XRP is sitting just shy of 83 cents. I'm going to be getting into an XRP price prediction for 2023. I'm comparing XRP as well on the charts to the past. We're going to share with you guys what's happening between XRP and Bitcoin as well too. XRP to the US dollar. We're talking about FedNow's launch. We're also getting into XRP's products. For those of you that are brand new wondering what XRP is, what JFK his bold plans are to back the dollar with Bitcoin, ending Bitcoin taxes. On top of that, what we're going to be diving into is the Bitcoin stock to flow model, comparing where we were in the past and exactly what we're looking at right here up until Bitcoin's halving coming up, and how far off we are from the stock to flow model line. Then the Dow Jones Industrial Average as well too. I noticed something very, very interesting about what could happen to the stock market over the next few years based on the 10-year treasury minus the 2-year treasury, and how we're inverted, this inverted yield curve right here, and then comparing the Fed pivot as well too to the past on what happens when the Fed pivots and what everyone is expecting the Fed to do over the next few short months. So right now, looking at XRP on the left-hand side, we see when it broke out upwards of 95 cents. Everyone's waiting for XRP to break the dollar mark. And as you can see, we're trending upwards. You know, the support line that we needed to hold was 71 cents. If we hold that support line and we continue to trend upwards, then the skies are looking green. They're looking bullish, because comparing back in the past from March of 2017, you know, it took about 7 days before XRP broke out from, you know, 0.011 was the high right here, corrected all the way back down to, you know, 0.008, right below a penny. Imagine getting XRP at that price point. But 7 days later, then we saw XRP break out massively and shoot upwards of 6, almost 7 cents. So that's what everyone's expecting right now. Now, what would cause that? Well, coincidentally enough, FedNow is going to be, there's going to be an announcement about FedNow in 24 hours from right now. So could we see XRP 24 hours from right now start to rip above the previous high and start retesting this downward trending resistance right here at about $1.30, which coincides with resistance at August 2021, August 9th to August 15th right here. And so this would most likely be the next stop of resistance for XRP. If we see a break above $1 and XRP shoots into this range, I would expect a consolidation period right here, and then another announcement we're going to be bringing to you guys on this channel for XRP. If we don't, however, if we don't break to the upside and this doesn't happen and we see XRP start coming back down, we would need to bounce off of this support at roughly 71 cents. Otherwise, if we break 71 cents, then the support for XRP would be roughly around 56 cents, where XRP struggled to break out from September all the way to June of 2023. So everyone's waiting for the break of $1 in the short term, and for something like this to take place, for XRP to have a pit stop to the moon upwards of $1.30, $1.40, roughly around here. So let's dive into what could cause that, because everyone's talking about FedNow's launch being imminent, but it's going to take a few years for everything to be fully implemented. And so the Federal Reserve could launch FedNow's real-time payment system as early as tomorrow. Sources tell Digital Transaction News that the network, which has been under deployment for nearly 4 years, represents the regulator's first effort to create a nationwide network for instant payments, a service that other countries and at least one other major U.S. processor have developed over the past decade. So the Fed earlier said that FedNow would emerge this month at the end of July. So it's July 19th at the time of shooting this video. Depending on when you're watching this right now, you guys will know over the next 24 hours. But it has not announced a specific date. So everyone's expecting 24 hours from now based on what's happening on the charts as well too. And bankers and other participants are under non-disclosure agreements regarding the launch. So I was just on the phone with a rep from someone with US Bank, and she couldn't say the answer to that. So these non-disclosures, they're keeping things hush-hush right now, and they're unable to speak on the records about it. But sources reached by Digital Transaction News indicate a launch is likely very soon. It's imminent, and the switch is about to be flipped. But the Fed is trying to orchestrate all the various PR outputs to ensure consistent information. And I guess any day this week now, that's what Steve Mott, principal at Payments Consulting Better by Design and close observer of the developments in real-time payments, said. Now, FedNow would compete with, but also likely connect to, other faster payment solutions, including the real-time payment service operated by Clearinghouse Payments. That network with THC launched back in 2017 has steadily added financial institutions and payment volume over the years as corporate customers and individuals begin to adopt the instant payment option. Such systems have also taken root in other countries in the recent years, and the launch of FedNow is the culmination of intense work that the Fed has engaged in to prepare financial service providers since announcing in 2019 it would build a real-time service. Last week, the top official at the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland outlined a course for FedNow that she says is likely to include a shift of time-sensitive volume to the new rail, particularly peer-to-peer payments. And so, clearly, real-time payments through distributed ledger technology, all connecting back to Ripple. So Ripple's products, X-Current, this is a software solution that enables banks to process cross-border payments in real time with end-to-end tracking and increased transparency. X-Current does not use Ripple's cryptocurrency XRP, however, but XRapid, this is a product that uses Ripple's crypto XRP to facilitate cross-border payments. It is designed to help financial institutions, reducing the cost and time required for cross-border payments. XVIA is a product that enables businesses to send money through the Ripple network using a standard interface. It allows businesses to send payments to any bank anywhere in the world with increased speed and transparency. Then there's RippleNet. This is a global network of financial institutions that are using Ripple's products and solutions to facilitate cross-border payments and other financial transactions. Keyword is cross-border. FedNow, if Fed just wants to stay in the United States, then they wouldn't use Ripple. If they want to make this cross-border, then they would leverage Ripple's technology. Then there's the XRPL, or XRP Ledger, which is an open-source, decentralized ledger that is used to record and validate XRP transactions. The XRP Ledger is powered by a network of servers that run the XRP software, which is responsible for verifying and validating transactions on the ledger. And the XRP Ledger is a key part of the infrastructure that supports XRP. It enables XRP to be used for fast, secure, transparent financial transactions that are much faster than Bitcoin, much cheaper than Bitcoin, and such as cross-border payments. The XRP Ledger is maintained by a decentralized network of validators who work together to ensure the integrity of the ledger and the validity of transactions recorded on it. So if that sounds confusing, don't worry. You don't need to know all the technical details. You just need to know that it's happening right now, and they're getting ready to make major announcements across the news. So smart investors are positioning themselves early. So don't buy XRP. Don't sell XRP. This is all educational purposes only, informational purposes only, but I want to bring you some other news that also correlates to XRP, because Bitcoin and XRP are the two cryptocurrencies that have clarity right now, because Bitcoin is considered a commodity and XRP, well, Ripple just won the lawsuit versus the SEC. So what's happening here is RFK Jr. announces his bold plan to back the dollar with Bitcoin, ending Bitcoin taxes and making Bitcoin profits exempt from capital gains tax. Now, how would this affect XRP? And I'm going to get into some price predictions for XRP here in a little bit based on market cap growth, because when Bitcoin grows, the rest of the industry grows. And he says that his plan would be to start very, very small. Perhaps 1% of issued T-bills, treasury bills, would be backed by hard currency, by gold, silver, platinum, or Bitcoin. He added that depending on the outcome of that initial step, he would increase that allocation annually. And this potential policy reimagines the financial system, pointing to a future where Bitcoin's absolute scarcity and sound monetary principles reinforce the US dollar's eroding position as the world's reserve currency. Because everyone knows that the world reserve currency is slowly but surely shifting over to China, with them cutting off trade and brokering deals in the yuan for petroleum, and backing dollars and U.S. debt obligations with hard assets could help restore strength back to the dollar and rein in inflation and usher in a new era of American financial stability, peace, and prosperity. That's why he's gaining popularity in the polls. So either him or Donald Trump. Now, one thing that's key here to understand is that Bitcoin, is being considered digital gold, a store of value, whereas XRP is not necessarily considered a store of value. It's a means and a mechanism on the XRP ledger to transfer money for big banks and big institutions. So they have two different purposes here. And so could that happen? Who are you guys voting for? Let me know your thoughts here. By looking at XRP compared to Bitcoin, XRP on the weekly candles, it broke out, it wicked all the way up here above this resistance on this symmetrical triangle right here. And we saw a candle body close above the resistance now as support. So XRP compared to Bitcoin, I could see outperforming Bitcoin and seeing some bullish momentum on the news of this breakout. Now on the RSI, we're sitting at 70 on the RSI. So at some point, I would expect there to be some type of correction for XRP. Could we shoot up a little bit higher, all the way up to $1.30? And then that's when the RSI takes a little chill pill for a little bit, all the way up here. Maybe we go up to 83 on the RSI. We kind of bobble around here for a little bit. And then as the RSI corrects, we see XRP consolidate upwards of $1 to $1.40 before we see maybe XRP come back down to a buck, maybe retest this level right here. And then we see XRP break out of this moving forward of 2025. This is what we got to see to know what's going to happen next for XRP is the Bitcoin stock to flow model live chart. And then I'm going to get into, the 2-year to 10-year treasury yield inversion, compare that to the Dow, then compare the stock market back to the crypto market because everything's connected. So I need to give you a macro market look here rather than just looking at XRP's chart and you hoping and praying and crossing your fingers here like a moon boy because you got to know other stuff, right? And I know you're very intelligent. I don't have to insult your intelligence here, but there's a lot of idiots out there, and idiots are what makes the world go round. And idiots are also the reason why the charts do something like this and we see these blow off tops because idiots are always buying the top and they're always selling the bottom. Whereas you, because you're intelligent, you're always buying the bottom and you're selling the top. So when is the top going to come in? Looking at the Bitcoin stock to flow model on the live chart, it shows the days until the next halving, roughly between 200 and 400. The halving's coming upwards of 2024. The one thing that's interesting to note is when you compare this to the past, we are drastically below the stock to flow model. Right now, Bitcoin should be, based on this, about $112,000. Instead, we're at $30,000. So we're drastically undervalued compared to the past. Now, if we were to look at the past and we were to compare the colors, let me just zoom in here and show you guys, from light green to dark green, about ready to go into blue, right? Dark green to blue. Once we make that shift and once that starts to happen, well, then what would happen with Bitcoin? Well, if we look from when we shifted to light green to dark green, then to blue, back in 2019, June of 2019, in July, we saw Bitcoin correct and kind of trade sideways along the stock to flow model before shifting to blue. Then what happened here is when Bitcoin shifted to blue, we saw Bitcoin even sell down a little bit lower than the stock to flow model. It's when it shifted to red and we saw the halving take place. Then we saw the massive bull run for Bitcoin take place from red to orange right here. Once we went from blue to red, that was the key point to look for. We were right at the stock to flow, and then we saw the massive bull run of 2021. Now, the time before then was very interesting because Bitcoin was below the stock to flow line, which is this orange line that you can see right here. So Bitcoin was at roughly $230. The stock to flow was at $358. So we saw a rally for Bitcoin up until it hit blue, and then it consolidated around the stock to flow. And then what happened after that? Well, let's look at it because once we went from blue to red, we saw a little bit of a rally above the stock to flow. Once we turned to red, a little bit of a correction, but then the bull run started right after red to orange, red to yellow, and then upwards of 2017 is when we saw the high for Bitcoin there. So that's very interesting to note. The time before then, when Bitcoin was at dark green, almost at blue, it was above the stock to flow. So because we were above the stock to flow, once we shifted to blue, we corrected to it. And then once we turned from blue to red, let's go ahead and see what happened there. Once we turned from blue, we saw a little bit of a rally above it, turned to red, came back down. And then once it hit red and Bitcoin halved, then we went on the massive bull run. So the major key here to understand is that when Bitcoin halves, then the bull run really starts, and it really starts to rip. And so we still have about a year for that to take place. So because we are below the stock to flow by about $70,000, well, and we're dark green, could we see a rally up over the next few months leading up to blue to get back to the stock to flow? Then the correction take place for Bitcoin around $100,000. Well, with this news about BlackRock filing their Bitcoin ETF with the SEC, with this news about Ripple winning the lawsuit and this liquidity flowing in the market, and then when we talk about the Fed pivot happening in 2024, that could mean bullish news for the market as liquidity starts to flow in. And these news and these media companies, because BlackRock controls the media, what do you think is going to happen when their spot Bitcoin ETF gets approved? Massive bull run, massive bull run. So $100,000 for Bitcoin could be in the works here. And I would not be shocked if that were to happen as we see a rally back to the stock to flow. We shift to blue and then we consolidate around $100,000 for an extended period of time. The Fed pivots. We see one final dip in Bitcoin. Then Bitcoin halves. Then we see the rip for Bitcoin from $100,000 to $150,000, $170,000 conservatively. Could that happen? Let me know your guys' price prediction here. But there's some more things that I want to look at with you because right here, in terms of the minor capitulation, blocks since difficulty bottom, we're at 247,000. And so the last times that we were there, Bitcoin saw a dip after that time frame So we could go a little bit higher in the short term, but ultimately there's going to be a correction coming soon. Now, when will that correction take place? Could it happen next week? Could it happen in a month? Could it happen a year from right now? There will be a correction that'll take place. And here's what we're looking at right here. We're looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and I want to compare this to the past with what the Fed was doing. So if I'm moving fast, you might need to watch this video multiple times, but compared to what the Fed did from 1976 to 1981 and beyond there, when the effective federal funds rate was at about 4, that's where we're at about right now. And then it went upwards of 20, right? 20, and then it corrected on the other side for that. And then the 2 to 10 year Treasury yield inversion. So here's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at 2021 of December and this retracement upwards above the 786 on the Fibonacci retracement. So point number 1 was the all-time high. So if we go all the way back to September of 1976 and we look at what the Fed was doing during that time frame right there of 1976, the Fed was just finishing up lowering their effective federal funds rate. So at the peak of January of 2022, what was the Fed doing? Well, January of 2022, the Fed rate was at 0.08. So the Fed had been lowering the rate since May of 2019, keeping it at nothing. So because there was loose lending policies, that allowed a lot of money to flow into the Dow, into the stock market, into the crypto market for the all-time high. Then once we saw this correction take place all the way down to point number 4, we can see some similarities here on the chart. We're from point 1 to point 2, where we saw a crash happen for the Dow. We saw a crash happen for the crypto market, followed by a recovery rally up to August of 2022, followed by a recovery rally for point number 3 on the Dow Jones Industrial Average right here, upwards of September of 1978. So during this recovery rally, the Fed raised the effective federal funds rate from 4.6 to, if we were to go to September of 1978, to 8.9. So during that time frame, they were jacking up the interest rates. And while they were jacking up the interest rates, we saw a recovery in the Dow of about 24%. Coincidentally enough, from point 2 to point 3, up until August of 2022, we saw a recovery in the Dow of about 15%. Now, for an extended period of time, the Dow didn't really do anything. It traded a little bit lower, but it kind of bobbled around before rallying out and breaking out of this resistance right here. Similarly enough, we see this downward trending resistance happening right now on the Dow, and it's breaking out to the 786. Now on the RSI, you can see on the RSI, if I minimize my thing right here, we're at 69 on the RSI. The last time that we were there was at point number 5, and it almost made up to the 786. Right now, we're trading just above it right now. And so when this happened for the Dow, was right at this point right here. We saw it breach just barely above the 786, and then it just consolidate sideways and trade along this support, which was resistance, bounce off of it, trade a little bit higher. Then we saw one final crash take place before blasting off for the Dow, moving upwards of 1983. And so what happened during this time frame right here to go from 730 on the Dow upwards of 1031? So by March of 1980, the end of the period was 19.85 on the federal funds rate, which is absolutely insane. Then they dropped it down to 10.44 by June of 1980. And so during that time frame, we saw massive volatility around this range right here. So could we see something like that take place for point number 8 with the Fed making the pivot here soon? Could we see some massive volatility as they decide what they're doing over the next few months, but yet we continue to the upside even higher? Because right here during this time frame, when the Dow retraced to 786, it took about 700 days for that other correction to take place. Now, interestingly enough, while the Fed raises the effective federal funds rate, there's talks of a Fed pivot taking place. And then on the 10-year to 2-year Treasury yield inversion right here, we saw that happen all the way back here where we bobbled around from 1978 to 1982 on the yield curve inversion. There were periods of time where it went above it in June of 1980, back down below it, and we bobbled around. So at some point, this is going to reverse. We're going to go back into positive territory, but what's going to happen there? Well, we look at the major drops in the stock market occurred after the Fed pivots. And so when will the Fed pivot take place? Because that would cause some chaos in the markets. Looking back in 1981 right here, during this period right here at the peak, we saw the markets drop 27% during 1981. So right here, this 20+% drop took place before the Dow took off, is when the Fed dropped the rate from about 22% by 1982 to about 8 to 10 or 11% right here. And then it bobbled around for a bit. And then we saw periods of raising it and dropping it, raising it, dropping it, all the way down to virtually nothing upwards of 2020. So what happened from August of 1982 up to January of 1984. Well, August of 1982, the effective federal funds rate was about 10.63%. They dropped it down a little bit lower, about 8.56% at the low, and then they raised it back up to July of 1984 to 11.83%. So contrary to what most people think, when the Fed raises the effective federal funds rate, well, it caused a rise in the market. When they dropped the rate, that's what caused a panic in the market. So while the Fed is raising the effective federal funds rate and we see this rally take place in the stock market, when they pivot, could we see the Dow come back down to retest this downward trending resistance, which is support right now, potentially even trade below it before we see another rally take place for the stock market. So over the next few years, it's going to be very, very volatile. A lot of people are expecting another crash in the stock market coming upwards of 2024. Now, here's another thing to note is on the CME group, the Fed watch tool in 6 days, 20 hours is when 99.8% of people are expecting the Fed to raise the effective federal funds rate by another 25 to 50 basis points. By September 20th, 87.9% are expecting another 25 to 50 basis points. By November, 71% are expecting a 25 to 50 basis point, and even 26% are expecting a 50 to 75 basis point. 0.1% are not expecting the Fed to raise at all up until December. Then we see 63.9% are still expecting a raise. January of 2024, the majority are expecting a raise. 34% are expecting 500 to 525, and then by March of 2024, and then by May of 2024, then they're expected to start lowering the effective federal funds rate in 2024. So this year for the stock market, we could do something like this where all these crazy circles are right here, where we would bobble around, trade even higher, which would cause bullish momentum to take place in the crypto market for Bitcoin to push even higher. Coincidentally enough, we're $70,000, $80,000 below the stock to flow. So as they raise the effective federal funds this year, as BlackRock's ETF gets approved, could we see Bitcoin rally back to the stock to flow, consolidate around here for a little bit, see one final dip when they pivot, and then once Bitcoin halves and it goes from blue to red, then we see the massive bull run for the last year leading up to the end of October to December of 2025, which if history repeats itself and we see Bitcoin above the stock to flow line, that would be about $1.2 million per Bitcoin. And this could be the last bull run that you ever see any possible gains like this. So could the money be shifting from the stock market over this year into the crypto market? And this is the new era of investing because the stock market hasn't really been around for that long. I mean, the past 100 years, you go back to 1929, you saw the stock market crash. Well, the stock market really has gained popularity momentum over the past 100 years. So over the next 100 years, because crypto hasn't really been around for much longer than 10 to 20 years, so it's still in the infancy stage. So could we see the next 80 to 90 years be the crypto revolution in a backing of T-bills by hard currency like gold, silver, platinum, or even Bitcoin, and then massive banks and FedNow to start using Ripple's technology to usher in a wave of adoption for XRP. So for XRP's price prediction, when we look at price multiplied by circulating supply, well, at the time of shooting this video, XRP, it's at 82 cents. When I started recording, it was about 84 cents with a circulating supply of 52.5 billion, which gave it a $44 billion market cap. Now, in order for XRP to go back roughly to its all-time high of $3.50 with the current circulating supply of 52 billion, it would need a $183 billion market cap, which is very well possible because that's just shy of, Ethereum's current market cap. To hit $5, it would need a $262 billion market cap. To hit $10, it would need a $525 billion market cap. To hit $25, it would need a $1.3 trillion market cap. So my price prediction, which I could be wrong, but by 2025, the end of 2025, over the next 2 years, as we see FedNow starting to get implemented and these banks starting to adopt it, it's going to take some time. So yes, it's time to prepare now because smart people start learning about the projects early before they see mass adoption. But by 2025, I would expect anywhere between $10 and $25. Anything beyond that is icing on the cake. $50 at the current circulating supply would be $2.6 trillion market cap. Currently, to put this in perspective for you, XRP's market cap is at $43 billion, and the entire market cap of this industry is $1.2 trillion. So if Bitcoin sees a rally from where we are right now at roughly $29,000, $30,000 back to the stock to flow line of about $112,000, $113,000 this year, while the Fed raises the effective federal funds rate. That would be roughly a 3 to 4x for Bitcoin. So you take 500 billion, multiply that by 3, that'd be $1.5 trillion. So if Bitcoin were to have a $1.5 trillion market cap this year, then it's very well possible for XRP to have a $200 to $500 billion market cap. In order for XRP to hit 50 or $100, it would need a $2.63 trillion or a $5.25 trillion. Now, to get upwards of $250, $500, or $1,000, we would need to be seeing, a $13 trillion or $26 trillion or a $52 trillion market cap. Now, anything is possible, but this right here is wishful thinking based on a flip of the switch for virtually every central bank around the world to start using XRP to basically reset everything, where you will own nothing, you will be happy, except if you hold XRP, you'll be very happy. So let me know your guys' price prediction for XRP. Right now, we're waiting to see what's going to happen over the next 24 hours. We're going to keep you updated on this channel.